And welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by Davidson's Beer, Wine, and Spirits. Davidson's is locally owned and operated with over 1,000 varieties of beers. They have wines from around the world, fine single malts, and rare whiskeys. Download their app today and use promo code FIRST10 to receive 10% off your purchase of $25 or more. They have 2 convenient locations in Centennial and Highlands Ranch, or you get your purchase conveniently delivered to your door. Remember, that's code FIRST10 to receive 10% off your first order of $25 or more. Now let's jump into the show. AJ, I took over your show here. You're letting me do reads.
Yeah, you just sort of airdropped in and decided that you're the man now.
I guess
it's fine. It's fine. I was the man for a long time, so I'm good.
Some would argue you still very much are. That mantle has not left you. Nice to be back on this pod, though, my brother. I almost said BSN Avalanche podcast.
Yeah,
it's been that long.
It's been that long, but Rudo taking a couple of days for himself means that you and I are going to be here talking hockey for the next couple. So I'm looking forward to it, bud. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. Feels like hockey might finally be back to, which is pretty exciting, especially since I'm somehow haven't lost all my money just yet betting on UFC and European soccer and all the other insanity that I've been doing in my day-to-day life these last few months.
I was hammering the bet last week on Joey Chestnut breaking the record. I was all over it, man, and then he went out and he did it by one hot dog. I was like, oh, what a hero.
Dude, that last 30 seconds was oddly more exciting than it should have been for me watching a hot dog eating contest.
You can tell that it's been a long time since we've had sports because it was legitimately like, go.
Yeah, I'm texting.
Just watching a man eating hot dogs got the adrenaline pumping. So when NHL hockey returns, I don't know how I'm going to react. I don't know that I'm going to have a reasonable reaction to it.
I mean, it's almost good we're not jumping right into playoff hockey, at least as Avalanche people. We aren't, because, boy, that would be extra intense to go from 0 to arguably the most exciting postseason in professional sports. I know you certainly would make that argument.
Definitely. It's the most intense.
Yeah.
And the Stanley Cup is it's so hard to win. Now it's even harder because 16 of the 24 teams are going to have to win 5 rounds to do it.
Yeah. Isn't that exciting?
So, no, the league and the players have started to come to agreements on the return to play phase 3 and 4 stuff. Yep. Phase 3 training camp protocols. Phase 4 is actually the hub city protocols. And most of the conversations have been about money up to this point because, of course, you have to get that settled. Just look at what happened with baseball. They kicked the can down the road on money, and it turned into a bloodbath for them.
Yeah.
And they completely missed their opportunity to take over the sports landscape, by the way.
Yes.
In doing so. They had a chance. They could have been playing by now. And it's a total disaster for them. Like, people don't even want to watch baseball when it comes back because it's like, So... but no, the NHL and the players, they're starting to come to agreements on all these protocols, and instead of diving into all of the specifics and like reading through all of this stuff, because it's like it's a lot of it is really, it's so mundane, and
it's true.
It's bubble life, so here's what it's going to be like for the bubble. Basically the players are not allowed to have significant others, families and stuff. None of that up until the conference finals and finals. Right. So they're guaranteed at least 5 weeks away from the families. Is that, to me, that seems like a happy medium to pull off the bubble life and to limit the number of people who are coming in and out of the bubble. When you get to the conference finals, you're down to 4 teams.
Right.
You should be able to handle 4 teams and their families after you've had 12 teams in each bubble. It seems like they're paring it down quickly enough that, even 5 weeks is a lot, but everybody kind of has to make a sacrifice here and there for this to make this work. You've got family. For me, I'm here by myself. I'm lone wolfing it up out here. It would be no big deal for me, right?
Yeah.
If I were to have to leave for 5 weeks, I'm not leaving anything behind.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got the wife and the kid at home.
Yeah.
What would it, if you had to leave for 5 weeks for work? How would you feel about that? I'm genuinely curious. Just a different perspective here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess, frankly, at first it might be a bit refreshing. We've been stuck at home with each other for a minute now, so I think everyone would enjoy a little space. It would quickly become pretty hard, though, because again, it's not just leaving the family behind. It's leaving the family behind in the state of our world as it is at present. And similar to you, we're out here in Denver and we're lone wolfing it amongst each other, my little family of 3, but we are isolated from family who lives out of state or out the country, in my case. And I'd imagine that's not too dissimilar from the overwhelming majority of these Avalanche players. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have no Colorado natives on the team. Now, some might have family who've moved out to be closer to them. But at large, you're talking about, maybe potentially leaving your family behind in Denver, and they're kind of isolated in Denver from getting that outside help. That they're, with one of the spouses being out of the house, you're not getting. Now, the beauty is these NHL families, they're used to long road trips. They have the financial means to get that extra help when need be. And so they're set up for success a little more. So it's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be harder. Once you're a family man, being by yourself is a little different. And all these players will be staying in individual rooms. Now, of course, they can go out, assuming they're following protocols and nothing happens within the bubble and everything's safe. They can go out of their rooms and go to the bar or the restaurant within the bubble at the hotel, is my understanding, so they can get their minds off things and get some distractions like that. But I'm not going to pretend it would be easy. It would be really hard being away from the family for that long with all that's going on, knowing that they're kind of you're leaving them in unique circumstances and kind of leaving them isolated and to fend on their own to some extent as well. So yeah, it's a complex thing for sure.
I wonder the differences too between a guy like Landeskog who, still has a baby at home.
Right.
And, for Landeskog, if you look at his daughter was born while he was hurt. Mm-hmm. So he was around. Right. He was there for the birth. He was around for all of that. Really only started to get into the swing of regular NHL play in that last month or so of the season. Right. Also, not a coincidence that was the best he played all year. And we, on this podcast, we talked a lot about our quote unquote dad theory.
Yep. Where
being a new dad was a really difficult adjustment for him. Yeah. And because this is a guy that we had seen for 8 years be one guy, and he just was not playing that kind of hockey. Yeah. And then he started to adjust to it, figure it out, and he started playing pretty well. The season ended. He's been, again, with his new daughter this whole time, posting adorable videos on Instagram of them together. And now, now he's okay. I've got to go back to work. Right. He's got to, camp, and then they've got to go into the hub city. He's going to go to Edmonton. There's not going to be much to do there. And I just wonder how different that is for a guy like Landeskog versus a guy like Matt Calvert. Also, has kids, is crazy about his kids, loves being a dad. And, now, but they're a little older. He's been a dad for a number of years now. And so it's a little, they're old enough to have an idea of what's going on, to be able to be explained, hey, he's gone for the next month.
Right.
Basically. And let's be real, like that's assuming the Avs do well.
Yes.
Like that's maximum of 5 weeks that there's separation.
Right.
And then the families can come in, they're going to be crossing borders. They're going to be doing whatever, which, for regular peasants like me, I'm not allowed to cross a border. Mm-hmm. Otherwise I would have been in Canada 2 months ago, know? I think that it's interesting because it's a whole thing we're talking about, but this really only affects 4 teams in the end.
Right.
Because all those teams that are going to be losing, they're going back home. Mm-hmm. And then these 4 teams, they're away from their families, but then their families get to join them. I'm just wondering, this is already going to be a hard Stanley Cup to win. Yeah. But you throw all these weird wrenches into it. There's no travel. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about any. You get no schedule has been set, but I would imagine that they're probably going to play close to every other day because they need to do this pretty quickly. Right. Clock is ticking on next season every day that this goes on, so they need to get this done.
Here.
I guess to transition this away from, this is tough because they're going to be away from the families and the setups. I guess I'm curious your thoughts on this. Rudo and I have talked about it, Evan as well, just a little bit, but from a perspective of, you're primarily around the NFL, but you keep an eye on all the leagues. Mm-hmm. Players are testing positive in all these situations across all of the leagues, including the NHL. But the NHL's biggest feather in its cap is going to Canada. Yeah. And away from the United States. Does that give you more faith that the NHL is actually going to be able to pull this thing off than the other leagues?
Yeah, it would have to. Not just Canada. I mean, I think sports outside of the U.S. have been coming back in full force, really, in the last month, all across Western Europe, which, of course, was dealing with a ton of issues related to COVID and the outbreak. And they're not, Bundesliga, Italian Serie A, EPL, across Europe, all these leagues, they're not in bubbles or anything, but they're making it work. That it took a little of transitioning to start off, but things seem to have gone really smoothly. I haven't heard of any cases where they've had to suspend games or players had to sit out because they tested positive. So far, everything's gone according to plan. And if it hasn't, they've maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but they've been smart enough not to let us know and create a stir. And the appearance is that everything has gone smoothly. And I think that that's a huge feather in the cap of the NHL to have this option. It honestly makes a ton of sense with so many of the players in the league being Canadian natives, so many teams in the league already based out of Canada. And it just gives you a whole different sense of safety and security, I think, because it kind of eliminates those outside factors, makes you feel a little safer about everyone within that bubble, and the precautions they're taking, and being able to trust it a little more because there are maybe a bit more clear standards in place and have been in place for a bit longer. While here, state by state, things have been different. State by state, outbreaks and hotbeds have been a little different. I think this kind of standardizes everything, cools everyone off, and makes that nice. I was telling you guys off air, I swear I noticed an Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, the famous NBA insider, tweeting out this morning that the Toronto Raptors had really been a shining example for the NBA as an organization and been kind of one of the few organizations that hasn't had positive test cases since going back to their facilities and kind of getting back into game shape and doing training camps. That Toronto, everything's gone smoothly so far. And I think that's another feather in the cap, the fact that a league like the NBA is looking at its one Canadian franchise as the great example. And Woj has since taken that tweet down, but I swear this was up. This did happen. I'll try to find a screenshot off air here. But I think that alone speaks really highly to what the NHL is doing. I like that they came out and kind of had a schedule in place and an idea early on, but they haven't rushed the safety protocols and are still taking their time and figuring that out right now. But it's not going to impact when games will be played. I've just been really impressed by the steps the NHL has taken, how they haven't seemed pressured or rushed in anything. And all of this, I think, should give fans and players a whole other level of security and calmness going into this bubble, and knowing that this league has a bit more control and a bit more of a stable plan in being able to achieve this and get back to playing sports, something that the rest of the world seems to have managed to do, and even individual leagues like the UFC here in the US have been able to do. It's just been the hurdle of getting across the team sports. And, even the NWSL, they've had their problems, but I've been watching league games over the weekend, the women's soccer league here in the US. They're seeming to make it work as well, though they've had some big names bow out. So we do have some cases both here and abroad that give me a little encouragement that the NHL can make this all work.
Yeah, I think I saw something today. I believe that the EPL did something 1,900 some odd tests and had no positive results.
Crazy, dude.
So, hopefully, and obviously those are in countries that have taken this a little more seriously than the United States, where, look, I'm not going to get into it, but let's be real. On the whole, we could have done a better job here. And we're paying the price for that right now with the uncertainty. Baseball's testing system lasted 3 days. Yeah. Before it kind of fell apart on itself, and multiple teams have had to shut their facilities down after 3 days. So,
right. I mean, their original bubble plan fell apart because then all of a sudden Arizona's going crazy, and
Arizona and Florida, like, hey, we're going to host the leagues here, and then it became like, which two places would be the worst to host it? The only other place that would have been awful would have been Texas, which is where the Astros had to shut their place down. So it's crazy, it's no I don't think it's any coincidence. I would say that maybe my one concern about the NHL is that they're doing training camps in their home cities, which I understand. You couldn't pull off a full training camp.
Yeah,
12 teams in one city trying to do. There's just not the ice in the schedule. It would be a total nightmare. Right. So I get it, but getting to the hub cities as healthy as possible. I think if they can just get there, I think they'll be okay. But getting to that point is still on shaky ground. Players are still testing positive. Training camp is slated to start next Monday, man. Next Monday, those guys are supposed to be on the ice preparing. And 2 weeks after that, we're supposed to be seeing games start. So we don't have 14 days to give to quarantine anymore for players who test positive. They have to take this seriously now. And the opt-out and all of that stuff, all of that is coming up.
Yeah. Lots to figure out here. I mean, that's the other thing. We're slowly at a point where sports, it's not just the scheduling, it's not just the contract negotiations. Then there's this final hurdle that needs to be passed with the testing. And as long as the testing's being performed now and the numbers are going down and the people testing positive are being taken care of, well, it's you're kind of up on some tight deadlines. It seems like if you can see some encouragement here and you're not seeing any new cases, we're at a point where maybe you can do it. But they do seem to be cutting it pretty tight.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, well, as we transition to the Next thing you want us to talk about?
Period 2.
My good friend, period 2. Yes, very good. Staying with the hockey theme. Look at you, so bright. The Mile High City Brick beer is something we want to take a moment here and acknowledge. It's their copper lager that they did in collaboration with the Denver Nuggets. I'm a real sucker for a good lager, AJ. I know that these more sophisticated beer drinkers around town, they like a little more flavor, a little more color to their beer. But for me, a nice, smooth, refreshing lager, few things better than that, frankly. And you can find that in their 15-can sampler, across Colorado. They have such a great variety of beers in those. I love that, to have my fridge stocked. It's always great when you do maybe have a guest come to the back patio and hang out. They might be those type of sophisticated beer drinkers that I was talking about. They can have something with a little more flavor, maybe an Avalanche ale or maybe a vanilla porter, while I can stick to my lager. Or maybe I'm feeling a little extra summery and I can get a Strawberry Sky. Lots of options in that 15-can sampler. And one of my favorites is the old Mile High City Copper Lager. So check that out. And another thing you should check out, I don't know how you did on the old fours tournament too, the fours for the fourth this weekend, AJ. I, as always, performed terribly and was reminded of why golf just isn't for me. But you and the rest of the gaming crew, I know, do great stuff. You can download the WGT app today from DNVR.com and search for DNVR 2. You can join that Clubhouse DNVR OG. Filled up so quickly we had to start a DNVR 2 Clubhouse. You can go in there, play all the tournaments against us. Every weekend we have a tournament together. You can just play and add gear. It's a phenomenal game. It's actually helped me understand the game of golf better, which I needed with some of my betting stuff. So go check that out. They've been amazing for us. They've been an amazing way to rally the community and do these games together, and it's just a great way to interact. So check that out.
Yeah, and anybody wants to jump in, we are at about 180 members.
Whew.
So peeps need to hurry and hop in.
Yeah, it might be time
before we have to make DNVR 3.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the trifecta, the trilogy.
And then what my Saturday night looks like when I'm sitting down trying to coordinate creating these tournaments every week. I have no idea what will look. It's hard to do with one person every week. And having DNVR 3, it's gonna cause me some headaches, but we'll keep doing it as long as you guys keep joining up and participating. Because it's all about that's what it's all about. It's all about you guys participating in WGT tournaments with us.
Heck yeah.
Okay, Dre, hub cities. Would you how would you handle? So if we were doing a sports media outlet hub city concept, how would you handle living with the DNVR team for 5 weeks in a hotel on the same floor?
I think that'd be pretty cool. No,
it sounds kind of fun, right?
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
And then you realize it's in Edmonton.
Yeah, but we're stuck in the bubble, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're in a 5-star hotel.
Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. I'll take it. I've slummed it worse than that. I know you want to take your shots at Edmonton.
No, I'm as Kale. Right. There's still beer in Edmonton. It's a great point.
True.
I'm curious how it actually works in Edmonton because the arena there is notorious for having some of the best ice in the league. And I'm curious how long that holds up just because it's going to get torn apart. The multiple games per day, every single day. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be weird. They're going to be in the road locker room. The Calgary Flames might get to use their locker room.
Yep.
Matthew Tkachuk is definitely going to walk around in the Oilers locker room naked. There will be no mask. You can guarantee that man will be trying to defile that locker room as best he can.
Yeah.
And you wonder,
why am I not surprised?
Can the NHL survive this?
Yeah. What have the Kachucks been up to these days?
Yeah, it's a good. Good break that Ottawa's not in it. Otherwise, you'd have the other Kachuk doing something in Toronto.
Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, is that an added item to all of this? Is no Kachucks allowed? They can't.
Yeah, you have to certainly worry about in the Battle of Alberta that Matthew Kachuk is going to. He's going to take his trolling to a whole new level if he has access to that Oiler locker room.
Yeah, really. Wow. And there's really no ice advantage. People will figure out how bouncy the Bulls are real quick. Yep. No one has the excuse of that kind of stuff. And yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but the Zamboni workers will be put under more stress than they would have if they were asked to play as an emergency goalie for a period and a half. I mean, maintaining that ice is going to be no joke.
Yeah. They talked about 31 skaters, 3 coaches. I'm curious how some of these guys that are going to stay fresh.
Yeah.
I'm also curious what practice looks like, because previously, and when the Avs were trying to get to their 23-man roster, anytime they had 30 guys, they had 2 sessions. So what their practice sessions look like, how are you going to structure it? Because you're going to have, if you have 28 skaters and 3 goaltenders, whatever the final numbers end up being, right? Some kind of construction like that. How are you going to? I wonder how the teams are going to keep some of these guys fresh. How much time are you going to? How do you structure a practice so that your 5th and 6th forward lines, your 5th and 6th D pairings are getting enough work so that if they have to play, they're ready to. How much does it take away from top guys getting practice? Will practice even be a thing come round 2? Because if you're playing every other day, then
right.
You may at some point just be like, we're banged up.
Totally.
At the start, it seems like you would practice a lot, right? You'd practice every day. Yes. You need every opportunity to get into top shape and be ready to go. But it seems like after, say, maybe the first round, maybe the second round, you might start pulling back on practices depending on the schedule, because you're it's the NHL here. You're banged up. As much as we should be doing this outside the rink, I can guarantee you when that puck is in play, social distancing won't be.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's the playoffs, so you're extra banged up. Yeah, once you've gotten past the seeding ground and the 5 through 12 seeding grounds, then you're in playoff mode. Guys are injured, or you want to rest a veteran because you're playing tomorrow anyways, and so then the 2 practice sessions, you can forget that, because having those extra 8 guys might actually be perfect. But yeah, early on, I think you want to really hammer practice hard. I mean, you want to get back in gear. You want to get back to feeling comfortable playing with each other. You're going to want to, kind of play around with different lineups, different lines, maybe attack a certain defensive matchup with this pairing. We want to try that out. So you're really going to want to hammer practice hard. And I have no clue. I mean, it might be where you're only allowed 1 session, and then maybe one coach is trying to get in an hour in here in the evening when the schedule is a little more, the ice is a little more available, and try to get a smaller session in with kind of that, almost that practice squad that's traveled with you, because they will be important. Those are members that at a certain point will play a key role for you in potentially the Stanley Cup Finals or another very important series that your fans and franchise might remember for decades to come.
Yeah, you are guaranteed, given the way the NHL is.
Yes.
You know that somebody who is not in the lineup on that first day is going to make a key play, key contribution somewhere throughout the league during this tournament.
Yeah, so you better be ready. I mean, it's going to be key to have everyone engaged. It's going to be, and that's where this kind of campus atmosphere might really help, because you're going to be around each other 24/7. No one should feel like an outsider. Everyone's just going to be part of team activities on the regular. But let's face it, a lot of this for every team is going to have to be, you're going to have to play your way into shape. You're going to have to, that team chemistry, some of it is going to have to kind of click on the ice in a key seeding game. That there's just not enough practice to get everything refined and back in gear how you want it before you need to play some actual really meaningful games.
Let me ask you this. I won't get too into the specifics of the roster stuff because I know that would be unfair to you to be like, hey, I need you to break down the specifics between AJ Greer and Sheldon. Like, that's not fair.
Right.
I am curious, though, for guys who are on the line like that, Sheldon Dries, and AJ Greer, those types of guys, how much do you think it could benefit one of those guys to come back and just be in monster shape? Like, totally 100%, like, no working yourself into shape. That guy showed up dedicated and said, I'm going to take a spot. I'm going to be at least, you have to take me on. You have to take me. You have to put me on the travel squad. You have to take me. For a guy that's on the bubble like that, guy that is right on the edge, how much do you think that could help him to come in with that kind of an attitude and just be physically already there?
I mean, I think it could be huge. That presumes he's going to have the opportunities in practice and in the lead up.
It does.
To show that he has that, right? Because
sure.
I think the other side of this equation is, like in the Dries Greer example, is you kind of assume guys like Greer have to almost come in with that kind of a physical advantage to really sway the coaching staff in taking someone like that rather than the more veteran, I trust you more in a playoff format. We're going to go, it's we're going off to tournament. I'm trusting the senior over that, guy who that sophomore who showed some juice at the end of the season, but at the end he's been with me in 2 tournaments already. I trust him, so I'm just bringing him.
Yeah, and I think the big thing. Hi, Bob. I think the big thing would be that somebody has to open the door, right? Like, I think they have a pretty good idea of the pecking order in their mind, but if they show up and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you have to feel like at least one of these guys comes in and is just disappointingly not where he needs to be.
Yes.
I mean, out of 30 guys, like, let's be real, like one of them did not take quarantine training as seriously as the other guy did.
If it's just one, it's a mild miracle, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at here.
It just sort of seems like this is just human nature. This is going to happen, right?
Yeah, you bet.
Like, if we were to do the DNVR thing, like, I would be the guy who did not take quarantine training seriously. And would have to work my way back into shape, right? Like,
yeah, dude. I mean, let's be honest. You and I have talked about this in private. It's been a different time to get your work done from home. Like, it's hard for your mind to kind of focus on the same old routine that I've been focusing on when doing this job in times prior, because the world we live in is different and the distractions around me are different. And the anxiety I feel about everything is different. And when you have all those outside factors, it's hard to do your same job. And hopefully there have been, it's been a healthy distraction for a lot of these players to do that. And that's how they've been able to stay in shape. And hopefully there are some dudes who, bless their hearts, are just wired that way. They've got blinders on, and staying focused on a goal is what really drives that. And having that for the last 3 to 4 months has allowed them to kind of reach a different level of physical shape and form, and can be kind of keys to a nice little playoff run here.
It is interesting because, like, obviously there are going to be players who have higher salaries, who have a little bit more of a means to, hey, they've already got the home gym.
Yep.
And then there are going to be some of these guys who, TJ Tynan may not have a gym in his house.
Yep.
Logan O'Connor may not have that resource to put that gym in his house, or, you might remember what it was like trying to order things off Amazon. The first month of quarantine was a challenge.
Yeah.
There were certain things that you could not get quickly. And I ended up having to borrow a webcam from Rudo, for example, because everybody was doing Zoom meetings to the point where webcams got sold out on Amazon.
Right.
So I do think that, see Alex in the chat says that it's still tough to get stuff from Amazon. I have more or less avoided.
Yeah.
I've tried to cut back on the Amazon ordering, just like only when absolute necessary. But yeah, see, there you go. It's still tough to do it. So some of these guys may not have had the same resources, and I'm wondering what kind of effect that has on the guys that come in, and what discernible impacts that has on how the roster gets shaped, who ends up going to the sub-cities.
Totally. And that, another factor is where have these players been quarantining the last several months?
Factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Landeskog being in Toronto, he had no issue staying in shape. It was fine.
Yeah. Right. And maybe in Colorado, we lived in Colorado. You had pretty good freedom of mobility. We live in Colorado, pretty good freedom of mobility, able to go to the gym, or, you're still in the city where your team plays. So maybe a little special access to certain team facilities or another facility that can be open for you through connections. And what happens to, some of the more international prospects, or, the prospects in the Northeast where things might have been harder to access. Yeah, there's all these factors, and like all these sports, once they kick back into gear, so many outside factors to take into play. You almost just have to throw your hands up, say, we will see how it plays out. Yeah. And, like that seeding tournament's going to be huge, man. Huge in really figuring out where are all these teams at, especially those what should be your top contenders in the two conferences.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, my man. Well, we hope the NHL season may go on as planned and nothing will be cut. But at the same time, we hope there's no grooming being done to the NHL season, but we have enjoyed the kind of grooming we have been able to do from the safety of our own homes after these last several months, thanks to our good friends at Manscaped. The Lawnmower 3.0 has been outstanding. It's water resistant, has a little light. It's got their special technology where you're not getting any nicks. You can use code DNVR20 for 20% off, plus free shipping on manscaped.com. They don't just have the groomer, the self-groomer. They have all sorts of other great products to get you smelling good, toiletry items. It's just great. They've been so good to us. You go check them out. We fully endorse their products. And then we also have here the good people at doing our coverage for the DNVR rugby. Check out the DNVR rugby podcast.
I don't have a newspaper for that one, guys. Sorry.
Nice. Our good guy, reporter Colton Strickler. He's got all the inside scoops, great guests on there, and great content and insights from someone who's been working closely with USA Rugby for years now. So check them out. These guys really have the opportunity to be, to do some incredible stuff. So check them out. Check out our feed at DNVR_rugby on Twitter as well, and support them. Yeah. What you got for me in this third period?
Trey, how's life been?
Well, that's a loaded question, but I must say quite good. I've got the old family. I've got this phenomenal job. I get to interact with you guys about sports. Now I've got an added excuse to bet on sports and watch sports late at night, early morning, during the day. So frankly, it's going pretty well. I have very few reasons to complain.
Have you or anybody that you know gone through any of the COVID testing process?
Yes, but it's my family living in Italy, so I think done slightly different, and I didn't get all the details on it.
Okay, but nobody stateside?
Nobody stateside, no.
It's a good break.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe where I run into my only real moral concern, I guess we'll say. For the most part, the league wants to try and put the tournament on. If the players want to try and make it work and they want to forge ahead through all of this and everybody's sort of in agreement, I'm okay with all of that because these are all adults making decisions, right?
Yep.
These guys, and there's an opt-out process. We talked about this on last Friday's show, that there's an opt-out process for no penalty. A player can choose to not join and just say, hey, this isn't for me. Obviously hockey's culture being what it is, we don't have to revisit that whole conversation, but it's there. If somebody chooses that, somebody decides that they're not comfortable returning, they can. We've seen a number of NBA players do it. We've seen a number of baseball players do it. Now, the baseball season, I think, is very easy to say, no, I'm not doing this. But the NBA and NHL are coming back for playoffs.
Yes.
They're coming back to win a championship. And we'll see. We'll see if anybody from the NHL does it. Personally, I would be surprised. But I'm of the opinion that if all of these people give a green light and they say, hey, even if I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do it. It's my job. I'm going to give it a go.
Right.
We all make choices in life, man.
Yeah.
Where I'm a little uncomfortable is that this testing process for the NHL is so robust. And to be honest, I'm proud of the NHL for that decision. That's exactly what they needed to do. It needed to be a thorough testing process for not just players or team personnel, but also for every single person involved in the hub cities.
Yep.
And involved in the bubble environment that they were designing.
Yep.
It's awesome. I'm not really allowed to talk about it, but the media has been given guidelines as well. And kind of we've been given an idea of what to expect in terms of testing, and even for training camp, which they may let media attend. Even for training camp, I have to get tested every day. They will be testing. They will be testing us to some degree. We will be going through some kind of process.
Yeah.
And I think that is impressive. What makes me uncomfortable is that there is an apparatus in place for a robust testing system for athletes when states have had a lot of their testing scaled back considerably. And I worry that morally we're in really shaky ground here. If the NHL can provide for this tiny little bubble to put on this little tournament, if they could spend the money to do that, I would feel better if they were spending the money to provide this kind of testing for public use as well, and saying, hey, this is what we're spending privately. We will match this, and we will spend to provide testing publicly. That way nobody feels like we're taking tests away. Because with limited amount of testing available, and certainly at least in the States, the virus still spreading the way that it is, it's a concern. So Your thoughts on this? Because this is where I've been uncomfortable ethically, is that such a robust testing process is taking away from public consumption.
Yeah, right. And then spreading resources thin otherwise for regular segments of the population. Yeah, I mean, I think you make some pretty good points. And I think what I love is you're suggesting a solution. And I think your solution of having the NHL invest similar resources and kind of use their model for such robust testing as kind of a model that local communities can adopt and follow would be just a phenomenal way to kind of, propel change and try to keep all of us safer in getting that testing out there. I think the NHL could be a massive kind of instigator of change in getting in motivating maybe other leagues to follow suit with this, follow their testing practices, invest similarly in robust testing and invest similarly in getting the communities at large test available and more money invested into testing and keeping. I mean, if the NHL could be a springboard here and then get the MLB and NBA and NFL to match them and do similar things. I mean, think at what a better spot we could be and how much more of a healthy investment of resources there could be in attacking this and getting as many people tested as possible. That could really be amazing. So, I mean, I hope someone can follow what you're suggesting along. Yeah, man. I mean, it's tricky. It's tricky to ask yourself all these questions and realize that a league like the NHL can do this, but
it's a fine line to walk between.
Sure is.
Give us the entertainment that we would love to have, because like I'm of the opinion, Sean Doolittle said something in a press conference yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but basically said that sports are kind of a reward for a society.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an interesting comment and made me think about it. I wasn't sure that I totally agreed with him, because as we've gone through this and we haven't had sports as an outlet, we haven't had that entertainment, that same entertainment that so many of us rely upon as outlets for our lives. And not even like the guys like you and me who like live for this stuff.
Yeah.
Discounting the fact that this is our actual living. But before we were getting paid to do this, we were doing a lot of this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
We were watching film and we were talking to people and we were staying up all night and, dedicating ourselves to this hobby because we just loved it that much.
Yep.
But none of us have had any of that kind of an outlet. I don't know that sports are so much a reward for society as they've become an essential part of it. Something that we just need to have the entertainment around. It's easy to say, oh, well, in the pandemic, these games, they're just games. You got to stop the games. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of seen what society has looked like over the last few months without sports. If they just never came back, obviously we would adjust.
Yeah.
But I think that you could easily make the argument that we'd be worse off for it.
Yeah.
Because you need to have a healthy outlet. You need to have fun. Sports are... Why do we have so many sports in the first place? Like, to me, it feels like they've become more and more important the longer this goes on. And as long as everybody involved understands the inherent risk.
Yes.
And is willing to take that chance. And if you're not, no bones. Right? Like no 100%. Judgment, no holding against anybody. Yeah. But I wonder if the players especially, I really don't care about front offices and management and like the owners, right? Like the right. Uber rich guys who buy teams because they can, like whatever. Well,
I don't. And I mean, front office guys, front office guys,
I do.
You mean no ill will, but their jobs could be done from the safety of their own home if need be. It's a much less tricky situation. The players, one way or another, they're going to have to be in the bubble. They'll have to be away from their family. They'll have to be surrounded by strangers the risks and their teammates. Right. They're assuming all the risk. Let's be
right. And so this is really like, if the players are comfortable and the coaches are comfortable, then I'm cool with this. I do worry about the testing part of it, but I also think it's important that we start to dip our toe back into this and see, can we manage this? Can we both have sports, and can we manage? And I'm not even talking about people going to games.
No. Forget that. Yeah.
Like, I'm not being the weirdest part. So I've been watching the Independent Baseball League because, Winnipeg is in it. And I have to adopt all things Winnipeg now.
You're such a good man.
And watching the Gold Eyes games, like, there were people in the stands, and they were playing in North Dakota. And like, there are people in the stands, and like, we were counting, the fiance and I were counting. One person on camera had a mask on, sort of. It was on like her chin.
Okay, nice.
But so like, clearly, like, we're not at that point. We're not taking it seriously enough that we should have fans in stands. But have games back, if we're able to do this. The NHL is able to pull this off. I wonder if we're still having these problems come January, if we're still having these problems when these sports want to start up next year, does the NBA maybe revisit the bubble idea in Florida? Do we revisit bubble concepts? Maybe instead of 2 of them for 12 teams, for 31 teams, you have, 5 teams in each bubble or something.
Right.
Or you do it by division. And you'd have 4 bubbles. If this works, could this set up a way for us to have sports next year if this thing continues on?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, what examples can it give to other industries which might need to be in person as they do things, and getting us to kind of some sort of new adjusted normality? If this can be an example, and yeah, I would disagree with. I get the point. I would disagree that it's a reward for like functional society. I think it's a mirror of our society, and it forces guys like you or I, who would love nothing more than to stay up until 5 and break down film and come on this podcast and break down some 17-year-old prospect going into the 2020 NHL draft or 2021 NHL draft, and just get into all the X's and O's and, all the differences between whatever, right? The AJHL versus the QJHL. We don't get to talk about that right now because as a mirror to our society, us sports heads are forced to confront these issues, are forced to talk about them. Yeah. And, that's just the deal, man. And we've got it a lot better than most. So it's a mirror of our society. And I think that, as uncomfortable as it may be, as much as we wish it wasn't this way, it's we got to face reality. And, just like in covering the NFL 3-4 years ago, we had to cover some of the protests that were going on. We could have just buried our heads in the sand, and now that's come back because a lot of people chose to bury their heads in the sand
or miss the point entirely.
That's exactly right. So whether you like it or not, it's us. It's a mirror of our society. It's a mirror of our culture. It's a mirror of the imperfect but very human interactions we have with others who might be different from us, but who we still have to work with on a team. And I think we just need to embrace it and hope for the best, but realize that even what doesn't go for the best is something we need to acknowledge, we need to live with, and that maybe we can all be springboards for change.
I'm good with that.
Cool. Love it.
That sounds like a period on the third period.
Beautiful. And as you guys may or may not know, taking care of your teeth is
a perfectly natural transition.
Pretty important. As NHL players know better than any pro athletes, maybe UFC. I don't feel like boxers are losing their teeth quite as much.
No, I mean, they have mouth guards in.
That's true. I was rewatching one fight to prepare for this upcoming pay-per-view, and a guy got punched as his mouth was opened, broke his jaw, because then all of a sudden the mouth guard does not help you.
Right.
So yeah.
Mouth guard's inside of the mouth. It's not going to protect that right there, but that's what your hands are for, Chief.
Yeah, so true. So get those hands up and go to Green Mountain Dental, because our friends at Green Mountain Dental Group are giving away a free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam. It's kind of a 3-way parlay for them. That's right. You simply have to take care of your teeth for Green Mountain Dental Group to hand over a free Sonicare. Check them out today or online, or call 303-988-0711 to schedule your appointment today.
Boom.
All right, my brother.
To answer Caleb's question in the chat real quick, the Avs look like contenders for probably the next 5 to 10 years, give or take. Is that too hot of a take? No. I think 5 years is fair. 10 years, we have no idea what anything looks like 10 years from now. So I'm not 10 years. Who knows?
Depends on locking down what percentage of the core.
Well, and how they develop and how injuries shape this conversation. And,
right.
You know, there's so many things can happen in 10 years. We have no idea. So
true.
But 5 years, most definitely. 3 years for the rest of McKinnon's contract, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Dre, let's get out of here for the day. Appreciate you driving the bus.
Appreciate you, brother. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Sounds good.